Meeting to order. Wow, that was a difference in sound. It is 5:31 on June 9th. Welcome, everybody, to the City Council meeting. We always start with the call to order, and then Pledge of Allegiance, please. Mayor Pro Tem.
Okay, please rise if you're able, face the flag. Ready, begin. Well, I guess my theme for inspiration tonight is our library. We had one heck of a grand opening event on Saturday, and I know a lot of the folks in the community were there. It was a massive crowd, and it seemed like half the town was there. And the library has, I think, you walk around in it and you get the sense that this is something a lot bigger and better than I think any of us expected. It's really something special. And anyway, it was a great event. It was great to see all of our friends there, and so many people have been so instrumental in getting that library built. And so it's still on my mind tonight. I told everybody Saturday I was walking around kind of giddy because I, like many people, had been hoping for this library and kind of working towards it for many years. So I thought, well, okay, I'll just talk about something related to libraries. How about books? So I found a couple poems by Emily Dickinson. One is about books, and the other is about a library and books in a library. So I'm going to give this a go. So this one is very short. Emily Dickinson's first poem. There is no frigate like a book. There is no frigate like a book to take us lands away, nor any coursers like a page of prancing poetry. This traverse may the poorest take without oppressive toll. How frugal is the chariot that bears the human soul. This one is a little less esoteric, a little longer. I'm going to use my glasses because I don't have number 20 font on this one. In a Library by Emily Dickinson. A precious moldering pleasure 'tis to meet an antique book. It in just the dress his century wore. A privilege, I think, his venerable hand to take, and warming in our own, a passage back or two to make to times when he was young. His quaint opinions to inspect, his knowledge to unfold, of what concerns our mutual mind, the literature of old. What interested scholars most, what competitions ran, when Plato was a certainty and Sophocles a man. When Sappho was a living girl and Beatrice wore the gown that Dante deified, facts centuries before. He traverses familiar as one should come to town and tell you all your dreams were true. He lived where dreams were sown. His presence is enchantment. You beg him not to go. Old volumes shake their vellum heads and tantalize us just so. So let's all get to the library. And I'm a bookish kind of person. I like the old books, the nice heavy bound books with dust on them. You're not going to find a whole lot of them in our new library, but you will find a lot of the old classics there. I think they have I think they have something for literally any taste in this city. And a lot of things that are not books, I think that people would find very interesting as well. So on that note, Madam Mayor, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Definitely exciting weekend. All right, may we please have the roll call?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Mayor Christine Lowe.
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Jean Goss.
Here.
Councilmember Edward Garcia.
Here.
Councilmember Callie Creeps. Welcome back.
Here.
Councilmember Robert Parkhurst.
Here.
Madam Mayor, you have a quorum?
Thank you. Madam Clerk, do we have any supplemental information for the agenda items?
We do not have supplemental information this evening, ma'am.
Okay, do we have any reports from, that's for us. Yes, we should have some.
Better.
May I please have any reports from our council?
I have no report.
Very short report, Madam Mayor, on
Saturday, June 6th, I attended the grand reopening of the library, and I really can't add much more than what our Mayor Pro Tem Goss added. It was evident by the turnout that the library is something very near, dear, and important to our community. I was not expecting the turnout that we had. It was phenomenal. I just want to give congratulations to library staff and the staff of the entire organization of the City of Sierra Madre, IT, Public Works. So you can just go through the whole thing. They were all there helping out. So thank you for the tireless work. We made it. We finally made it. It was a long time coming. So I'm very grateful that it was finally finished, and grateful for all the dignitaries that showed up and all the hard work.
So I have a little bit longer report. May 27th was the Clean Power Alliance Energy Committee, and they're working on a regulatory filing that will forecast energy out to 2045 as required by the state, and that has to be filed in August. May 30th, I got an early look at the library with the partners of the library at a reception. It was really nice. Great showing by the community and all the people that support the library. June 3rd was the Older American reception over at the Hart Park House, and it was absolutely delightful. A nice little dinner reception and a good showing for our Older American of the year, Dane, what's Dane's last name?
Linton.
Linton, thank you. June 4th was the board meeting for the Clean Power Alliance, where we adopted a 2-year budget and finally adopted rates that go into effect on July 1st. There are 3 rates that for residential customers, one of them which is 2% below Edison's rate, one of them that's even with it, and then the 100% renewable is at about a 7% premium. And then finally, the library opening. I called it like a July 3rd level event. It was amazing at the number of people there, the energy that was there, the involvement. I stuck around for a good long time. Didn't quite get to see the reptiles, Thor's reptiles, but got to see a whole lot and get to see people's eyes kind of bug out as they went into the library and see all of the different parts of it. My favorite part, which I point out to everybody, and our librarian was the one that pointed out to me, are the chairs in the teen room. You haven't gone into the teen room and sat in the chairs. They're very unique, and I think a great addition to the library, in addition to all of the other wonderful upgrades to it. But the chairs are something that it's not what you expect, and a nice little treat. So that's my report.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes, I was at that Older American reception on the 3rd and got to fill in for Mayor Lowe and recognize Mr. Linton as our Older American of the Year. As Councilman Parker said, it was a very delightful event. And again, I attended the library grand opening on Saturday.
Thank you, and thank you for attending that. All right, so on 5/27, I went to the County Sanitation District where we approved the rate increase. And I went to Arcadia City Hall instead of all the way down to Whittier, which was nice. And then on 6/4, I went to a session called The Future of Workforce, which was very interesting on how we are going to rebuild Altadena, Pasadena, and our surrounding area from the Eaton fire. And it was not just construction positions, but positions of SEL, social-emotional success for people, the architects, almost every support that we need in planning, in construction and how we rebuild. So that was really interesting. PCC, Pasadena City College, is our home community college, and they have a lot to do with that. They received a $55 million grant to help build a lab, like a construction lab, to help with this workforce. And we're talking right now, including Sierra Madre, with our Foothill Workforce Board in order to really find out how we can encourage our local residents and especially our youth on construction positions. And then on 6/4, I attended the Planning Commission. and that was a doozy of a meeting. They were adopting and going through the Sierra Madre design standards, objective design standards, and it was very tedious. It was a lot of work. They caught a lot of things that I wouldn't have thought of, and they were extremely diligent. There was only 3 of them, and they had to go through the whole thing, so it took quite a few hours. So that will be a report later on coming up. And then on 6/6, before the library, I went to the British Home June Fair and opened that. We thought it was going to be canceled, but our own Marilyn Diaz was able to pull through and really encourage younger participants. So it looks like that'll continue on. I'm hoping they do something really outrageous and great for the upcoming Olympics. And then the grand opening, of course. Now, my favorite part of the whole grand opening was the lion dancers. That was fantastic. But I also enjoyed seeing everyone so excited and the smiles and the true history of our library. We had librarians there that I grew up with, that we had staff there that had been in that library forever, and it's almost like it was like a revow of the whole town. It was just so exciting. Our dignitaries were great, and I don't know if it could ever have gone any better. It was just perfect. So congratulations to our old staff, the library staff, and everybody else who supported and had a huge part in completing that task. So that'll be exciting. And that was it. That's all mine. All right. Do we have reports from city staff?
Yes, ma'am. First, and there are 2 reports. The first from Director Arciero on the library's events.
I'm sure you slept well after this.
Hello, Mayor Pro Tem Goss, and our Honorable City Council. I am Layla Arciero, your friendly neighborhood library and community services director. And, oh, is it not on?
It's on. I just put it forward.
No.
I'm here
Is the
to,
light on?
give you some updates, more or less. We're going a different route.
There we go.
Now you can hear me. Okay. I'm coming at you with statistics. So thank you all for being there and taking the time out of your day. It was much bigger turnout than I think anyone expected. That day alone, we managed to check out over 1,000 items. So, so staff was busy. We've only been open 2 days, Saturday and Monday, and in that time, we've registered over 100 library cards. So, and 60, it was about 111, and 63 of them were Sierra Madre residents.
Great.
So, we're gonna get you. No, just kidding. I want to say thank you to our mayor and to our city manager, who both gave wonderful speeches at the event. And I just wanted to throw some of those statistics at you and say that the library's open. And just as a reminder, for June and July, we will be closed on Tuesdays. And that is because we still have a little bit of work to do, but for the most part, we are open. And I do want to take this time, as we've all said, to thank all of our departments that made this happen. Public Works reinstalled the benches outside the week before. IT made it so that staff was able to work in the building, and planning made it so that we had a building that was open to the public. So thank you to everyone for that wonderful event, and we look forward to seeing you at the library.
Thank you so much, Director Layla. And there was another one?
Yes, ma'am. The second report is from the city clerk's office. As you are aware, the city held a special election on June 2nd, asking voters to cast their ballot on Measure GL that was adjusting the city's GAN limits. The Los Angeles County Clerk's Office has 30 days to certify the final vote count. However, the unofficial tallies indicate that Measure GL has received a majority votes, with over 3,300 voters supporting Measure GL and approximately 1,000 voters opposing the ballot measure. The city clerk's office intends to bring the official numbers to the city council at an upcoming election, at an upcoming council meeting. and it'll be presented for adoption through a resolution.
Great, thank you so much. All right, moving on, do we have any public comment for items not on the agenda?
Madam Mayor, we do not have any speaker cards for items not on the agenda, or no emails for the record.
Madam Mayor, before we go on, we typically talk about events coming up, and I know we've
Oops.
got some of those coming up.
Thank you so much for that reminder.
No worries.
I was so excited
I didn't know
about
if you
the
had them.
library all the time. I'm still elated. Okay, well, that is the opening of events. The library is back. Residents can view the Sierra Madre summer calendar online to explore upcoming programs and events. Highlights for this week and next include intergenerational story time at the Kensington, Kids Chess Club, the Sensory Play Time, Tween Dungeons and Dragons, Sip and Shush, that's the reading while you're silently drinking at R.T. Rogers, Noteworthy Puppets, Reading Buddies, Tales and Tales, Read to a Therapy Animal, Billy Bonker's Magic Show, and more. Visit the summer calendar online for dates, times, and registration details. Do you have the summer reading program too coming up? And that's for adults and students, correct? Exciting. This Sunday, June 14th, come and enjoy the park in the Memorial Park for Back to the 80s band called the Main Street Groovers. I've seen them before. They are fantastic. The guy does a kick, like a kick, jump kick in the middle of his show. It starts at 6 p.m. That's again on Sunday. Come join us for a fun and family-friendly community bike ride on Friday, June 19th, beginning at 5 p.m. at Memorial Park. Participants are invited to enjoy an evening ride through the community and then stay afterwards for the first movie in the park, beginning at dusk, which is the featured film Lilo and Stitch. Bring your blankets, lawn chairs, and enjoy a great evening of recreation and entertainment with family and friends. And then the community is invited to attend the upcoming community yard sale on Saturday, June 20th from 8 a.m. to 1:30 p.m., hosted by the Senior Community Commission. This event will feature a variety of treasures, household items, collectibles, and more. Be sure to stop by, shop locally, and support this fun community event. I don't think there was any other events that I could think of. So. All right, sorry about that, thank you. All right, with no public comment, not even emails, we will move on to our public hearing. We will now, let's see, we will now open the public hearing. And this is different. Any person wishing to speak before the City Council on a public hearing item is asked to complete a speaker card noting the agenda item number and provide it to the city clerk prior to the start of the public hearing. Separate and apart from the applicant, speakers are generally limited to 3 minutes and will be announced prior to the public comment period. Under the Brown Act, the City Council is prohibited from discussing or acting on any item that is not listed on the posted agenda. The applicant may additionally submit rebuttal comments at the discretion of the City Council. Do we have a public hearing today? Do you have a presentation?
Madam Mayor, Assistant Planner Huang will be giving the report.
Thank you.
Testing? I think it works. Thank you. All right. Evening, Mayor Lowe, Mayor Pro Tem Goss, and members of the City Council. Tonight, the City Council will be reviewing ordinance number 1495, a municipal code text amendment to add chapter 17.50 for objective design standards and to amend various sections of Title 17 for zoning related to multifamily developments. For some brief background on this item, the city participated in a regional objective design standards document that was led by the San Gabriel Valley COG. The city, as well as 3 other participating cities, were able to be actively involved in this process and also in drafting these standards tailored to our local context. These standards were developed by the Royal Group, which we have here today, Mr. Burns, representing them, and also Onyx Architects that helped supported the document. This initiative was funded by the SCAG REAP 2.0 Subregional Partnership Program grant for efforts to accelerate housing production and support jurisdictions for priorities related to housing. These standards are intended to provide a clear, consistent, and objective framework for design review of multifamily and mixed-use developments, and also to comply with recent state legislation, for example, Senate Bill 330 and 423 for streamlined housing approvals. In March of 2026, the San Gabriel COG held a stakeholder outreach meeting to allow for the community and stakeholders and residents to provide input on these design standards for the draft document. This was provided through an online comment forum by the COG. For a brief timeline of what events have occurred for this ordinance, on May 27th of this year, the Planning Commission reviewed the amendments to Title 17 and also reviewed sections 1 through 3 of the Sierra Madre Objective Design Standards document and provided staff and the applicant direction and comments for changes to the document where that can be made for a local context. Following that, on May 21st, the Planning Commission had reviewed the revised amendments and approved Planning Commission Resolution 2606 for the text amendment itself, but also continued the public hearing to review the remaining sections of the Sierra Madre ODS document. And last Thursday, June 4th, Planning Commission reviewed the remaining sections, provided additional changes to staff and the consultant to make specific changes for sections 4 through 9, and approved the Planning Commission resolution with the living document. And today, City Council will be conducting the first reading of this ordinance, and a second reading is forecasted for June 23rd. I do also want to note that the SCAG program grant does require cities to adopt the ordinance by the end of June, and does not allow the ordinance to be adopted with a special city council meeting.
May I ask a question? So the objective design standards that were shown are not what just happened on the 4th. And then we're not approving the design standards or reading through that. We're approving a resolution to adopt a living document of, okay.
To clarify, yes, that's correct, Mayor Lowe. The ODS is a living document that can be amended by resolution by the Planning Commission. So tonight we have the text amendment for you for Title 17 and the addition of the additional chapter.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, I have, if you go back 2 slides, it says for state law compliance. I don't know if you're going to address it now or later, but can you tell us a little bit about what we have to do to comply with state law? Like, what are some of the changes? What are the things that have to be considered as a part of compliance?
Thank you for the question, Councilmember Parkhurst. So city is required to provide objective design standards for multifamily and mixed-use developments due to state laws that require streamlined housing production, ministerial application reviews, et cetera. Our consultant will go over some of the state laws, like an overview of it. But in order for us to still have some, don't want to say discretion, but still review these applications, and it's not just a non-quality application, the state also required the objective design standards to kind of have the city rely on for the review of the guidelines for those applications. So this ordinance tonight is consistent with the general plan's housing element in goal 2 and 3, in that it provides or facilitates a range of different housing types to meet community needs, and also reduces governmental constraints for the development of housing, and promotes flexibility for those development standards. This ordinance qualifies for a common sense exemption under the California Environmental Quality Act, Section 15061, subsection B3, and that these proposed amendments are limited to establishing design standards and will not result in a reasonably foreseeable physical change to environment, and that these amendments would, that there's no certainty that these amendments would have a significant effect to the environment. The objective design standards itself is formatted as a standalone document. So the proposed amendments to the code is to adopt by reference into Title 17 and to add Chapter 17.50 for the objective design standards, and also to amend the various sections as listed below related to multifamily or mixed-use development. For anyone in the audience or members of home that would like to take a look at those draft amendments, they can do so by scanning the QR code on the right. And I'll leave a few seconds to do so. All right. So now we have our objective design standards that were updated on June 4th, 2026. You could also review those and follow along on the QR code to the right. We have Mr. Burns from Arroyo Group here tonight as well. He'll provide an overview presentation of the process and the document as well.
Did you say this is the updated version?
This is the version that the Planning Commission reviewed on June 4th.
Got it.
The changes.
Without their corrections.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Thank you, Caitlin. Mayor Lowe, members of the council, thank you so much for this opportunity to speak with you today and present on the objective design standards. As Assistant Planner Wong was mentioning before, this, and as you brought up, Councilmember Parkhurst, this whole effort is in response to a number of different state laws. The most important of those state laws, I would say, is the Housing Crisis Act, SB 330 from 2019. And basically, SB 330, what it did is that it says that a project cannot be denied through discretionary review unless it is in compliant with an objectively written standard. And so basically that leaves the city with, if the city wants to have the ability to continue to deny projects on the basis of poor design, it needs to have objective standards written into its regulatory framework, which can be the basis for this decision. And so on top of that, I guess I'll say, kind of go here to the second bullet point on this slide, which is that the state has established several streamlined ministerial approval processes. Those are specific types of multifamily and mixed-use projects that qualify for this streamlined ministerial approval. An example would be a 100% affordable project being built with prevailing wage in a city that has not yet met its low-income RHNA. Okay, so that a project such as that, the applicant could invoke SB 335, which is now SB 423, and the specific, and that law would require that the design review for that development be based solely on objective standards. So no subjective guidelines, no guidelines that have been adopted by the city in the past would be able to be taken into account within that design review. The task of putting together objective design standards, as you saw, Mayor Lowe, is a complicated one because inherently good design is about flexibility and creativity, right? It's not about making everything uniform. And so how do you make it objective? How do you make standards that, per this slide, per the state law, says they involve no personal or subjective judgment by a public official and are uniformly verifiable by reference to an external and uniform benchmark, et cetera, okay? It's a challenge, and one that we have spent the last year working on in concert with the 4 cities that participated in this project. And then also, in a great deal of depth, and I'm very thankful to the members of the Planning Commission for helping us to refine that more through 2 pretty extensive hearings over the last month. So let me go to how did we create these standards? So, there are a lot of rules of thumb for what is good design, but of course, what is good design in Sierra Madre does not necessarily meet what is good design in downtown LA, what is good design in Venice, right? So our process was really geared toward understanding each of the 4 participating cities' experience implementing their own design guidelines, the types of projects that they had received, the comments that they had given to applicants related to each of these projects. We conducted field work within key areas here in Sierra Madre, particularly in the multifamily areas along Sierra Madre Boulevard and over here along Mariposa. We also developed a menu kind of successful, we consider to be successful projects within the San Gabriel Valley that are generally compatible with the general criteria that we want to, that seem to be appropriate for this area. But customizing it as well for the specific, maybe I'll go back to this one, for the specific needs of the city of Sierra Madre. I am privileged to have worked in the city before, back in 2021, and I'm also a resident here in Pasadena. My kids are going to the summer enrichment program over here at Sierra Madre Elementary. I know the community fairly well. I understand that there is a unique feel to this community. There's a village feel, right, that is not true of all the cities in the San Gabriel Valley, and that is important to preserve. So we definitely kept that in mind as we were working on making sure that we could customize these standards to be appropriate for this community. The standards, each page of the standards basically looks like this. As you see, it covers a particular section or topic area. It begins with an intent, and then it gets into the objective standards themselves, which are numbered. There is a flexibility provision written into the ordinance here, whereby the reviewing authority can approve up to 3 exceptions from specific objective standards within the document if a project meets the general intent of what is trying to be achieved. And that's just to provide extra flexibility. But in general, all the projects need to comply with all the standards which are there. They're expressed in text and they're supported by supporting diagrams, as you see. One of the key concepts to understand within the standards is the concept of house and block scale zones, because obviously in an area like Mariposa Avenue, for example, that's a multifamily residential area interspersed with single-family homes, you want to have a character that is very different than if we had a mixed-use project that would be built just a block away here within the downtown village. So the multifamily residential areas basically are considered the house scale zones, and you see there some examples of the types of projects that we have in mind as we are creating those these standards, such as 2 to 4plexes, townhouses, courtyard apartments. The block scale zones, on the other hand, are mostly your mixed use areas, so the commercial and the religious housing overlay zone, which are more mixed use kind of areas. So I should also mention that these standards will apply only to multifamily and mixed use development, so it won't apply to commercial only. But of course, you'll have projects that may have residential above, commercial on the ground floor, and so there are standards relating to both the residential and the commercial components of those projects. So here's a list of the topics that are covered, each one with its own section: site planning and access, building modulation and articulation, materials, finishes, and color, frontages, open space, entries, exterior lighting, walls and fences, and loading areas, trash, and utilities. Some of the feedback that we received from the various planning directors that we worked with throughout the project was that they wanted to see comprehensive standards. Some of them had experience with objective design standards in the past and felt that they were helpful, but they could not address the breadth of comments that they wanted to give to projects. And so this set of standards is, it is relatively heavy, it is relatively comprehensive, and that was as a result of the direction that we heard from the 4 participating cities.
Can I ask you a question really quickly about that list? So when it comes to the same materials, now this is only the look of them or the textures, but not necessarily the safety of them. So like a fire safe aspect would not be in this code. It would be in the fire codes or the
That's correct.
building codes.
That's correct. So this is, in essence, this is an augmentation of the zoning code. So it is concerned with design and planning related aspects, not safety aspects.
So are there aspects where you had to check to see that it was permittable in both? Like for instance, a material that is allowed and not allowed, but then it's allowed differently in here. So did that overlap?
That's right. Yeah. So we did check it against the building code. Members of the Planning Commission also brought up things that they felt might be inconsistencies between the draft standards and the building code. And so those have been addressed. I actually have kind of here just the working document of responding to the comments from June 4th as well. Should you all have comments about the Planning Commission's comments on June 4th and how we want to respond to those. If any conflicts do come up in the future between the objective standards and the building code trumps. Yeah, because it's health and safety.
A follow-up to it, so because we're talking about building code, is there any other standard that this is based on? Because the building code and the electrical code, they're based on statewide or nationwide standards. Does this have any template or, how did you come up with the 9 categories? And, is there any other guidance that's out there that helped inform making sure that this was holistic and addressed the issues that are presented before the city?
Yes, we did. So I guess we just have one bullet point on it here, but we did look at other local and regional objective design standard efforts throughout the state. We looked at, I think, 10 of them. So there was a pretty good number that we compared with this. And ourselves, the Aurora Group, we also had experience writing objective design standards.
So there's nothing broader than that. It's like what we do with a lot of programs is we go and we look at what other people are doing and follow best practices. That's essentially what we did here.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah, there's nothing regulatory that we have to use as a base for this. Mm-hmm. So the Planning Commission had a significant number of changes, which, as I mentioned, were very, very helpful. I've listed here what I think are the key ones, and I'll go ahead and go through those if that's all right with you. So first, in the introduction section, the Planning Commission wanted to streamline this section, so it is shorter than it was in the past, and some information has been moved to the appendix, Appendix F. Throughout the whole document, there was some confusion around times when the standards would refer to the width of something versus the depth, et cetera. And so we provided additional clarification around those standards throughout the document. You'll see them in your copies in the blue, sort of the light blue or cyan red line. Those are our responses to their first set of comments from late May. Site planning and access, they wanted to increase the number of options available for windows that are in proximity to each other. There is a standard that requires a lot of mitigation around ensuring privacy when you have two windows which are within 10 feet of one another. And so the commission gave us a broader set of options for complying with that general goal. Under building modulation and articulation, they eliminated a standard which we had proposed related to a minimum distance that the top floor would have to be stepped back from lower floors. They gave an objective standard for requiring wall plane variations to align to interior space divisions. This is to avoid the fact that we require buildings to have we require buildings to have wall plane breaks, so to be not just a flat facade all the way, but to sort of go in and out along their facades. But we don't want those in and outs along the facades to create weird interior spaces because somebody didn't coordinate the interior of the building with the exterior of the building, basically. So I know this is very, very in the weeds, so maybe I'll move quicker through them, and if you all have more questions about it, we can come back to them. Third was applying massing limitations on third stories to all house scale zones. It's currently in your code only in certain zones. They reduced the minimum required projection for balconies. And we had proposed also a standard that all mixed-use projects within the commercial zone have a flat roof, and they did not agree with that. So that was taken out. Under materials, finishes, and color, they wanted to make sure that we would allow composite, such as fire-resistant materials that mimic natural ones. On the frontages, decrease the minimum awning depth for commercial shop fronts. On open space, quite a few changes on open space, really aligning the design standards to the structure of the city's current open space regulations, which are a little bit different than what you might see in some other cities. Requiring ground floor open space in all house scale zones to match the ground floor open space requirements that were written into R320 and R330, and prohibiting rooftop decks in house scale zones. Entries, clarifying that interior security bars over windows of commercial uses, for example, the jeweler, would be permitted. Exterior lighting, eliminating the prohibition on colored lighting and relying on a minimum color temperature instead. And walls and fences, prohibiting PVC posts as a fencing material. Finally, loading areas, trash and utilities, requiring trash enclosures to screen views from all directions.
Just one question on that. With respect to lighting, was
Yes.
there discussion at all or review of our dark cities ordinance to make sure that this was consistent? I don't know if it deals with color versus just intensity of lighting, but I just want to make sure this is consistent with our dark city ordinance.
There was discussion of the dark sky.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, dark sky ordinance. Yeah, and there are standards basically that require that all the light be downward directed, that it be shielded. So that's the compliance with the dark sky.
Thank you.
I have two questions on this. On the materials, finishes, and color, why not the inverse? So rather than not prohibit composite materials, from a fire-resistant perspective, why not encourage or require fire-resistant? Was there any discussion on that and on requiring that?
I don't know that we had a discussion about requiring it. I think that, you know, if a project is within a very high fire hazard severity zone, and you know the fire code is going to impose that requirement, then then that will become the requirement, right? So
In
the
other words, it's
operative
covered.
thing.
It's covered in the safe building codes. If it's a requirement to make it fire safe in a high severity. This is not the
Yeah.
fire safety's
No,
objective
yeah.
design. This is only the looks and design.
Yeah. They're not entirely consistent, and I understand why now. On the walls and fences, why are PVC posts prohibited?
Well, vinyl fencing in general was prohibited, but before we had not explicitly prohibited fencing that would just have vinyl PVC post. And so the thought of the commission was to make that consistent. I think also they maybe didn't think the aesthetic was appropriate for, it's more of a rural aesthetic.
So someone who already has vinyl fencing, they can leave it, or do they have to now remove it?
And this would only apply to multifamily and mixed-use development. So if it's on an existing multifamily property, it's still fine up until the point that property owner asks for that property owner either completely redevelops or they want to expand the footprint of the building. The standards also say that at the point that they expand the footprint of the building, then the objective design standards become operative on the expansion.
Can you also check with that to make sure it doesn't violate the safety codes? Because I believe in the building codes, that was one of the materials that is allowed in a high severity fire zone versus wood.
Certainly.
Thank you.
And I'm still not clear on why the PVC is prohibited. The logic didn't come through on why it's, what the rationale was for prohibiting PVC posts. Is it all PVC fencing, or is it just posts? I'm trying to understand what this means.
Yeah, well, the vinyl fencing in general was always prohibited. It was prohibited in our initial draft submitted.
Okay.
Just like vinyl exterior cladding of a building is also prohibited because it tends to be of low quality and really, suffer, poor from a maintenance standpoint. It tends to deteriorate very quickly. So, so it was always prohibited as an exterior material and as a fencing sort of, as the general material for the fencing. And it was only the posts that were left permissible.
Mayor, if I could suggest, if there's questions about the rationale of the commission, we do have the chair present. He could probably articulate what his rationale was for some of these amendments.
Do you prefer to do that after or during? Would you mind doing that, Chair Dennison? Thank you so much. Thank you for attending tonight to help
Absolutely.
us with this.
Excuse me. Thanks for having me, Chair, Mayor Lowe, Mayor Pro Tem Goss, and council members. When we had received it, vinyl had already been excluded every other place, and so this was more of an alignment so that you couldn't have just vinyl posts and not vinyl anywhere else. So we were trying to make a consistent code. That was the logic behind the vinyl.
Thank you.
Then you probably don't have to check on that before, because that sounds like it's consistent with all buildings.
Since you're there, Chair Dennison, I had a couple other questions. I was hoping you'd attend. Is there anything in objective design standards that the planning commission particularly struggled with? Like, how are we going to implement this, or how do we make something objective, or how do we implement the objective design standards?
We have been told since 2019 by Mr. City Attorney that this was coming our way, that objective design standards would be the future. And one of our big concerns had always been how it would be that city staff would have the bandwidth to be able to come up with some kind of a guideline for this. Cities like Santa Barbara have done this long before anybody else, and you see just perfectly aligned housing through that. So I think we were really lucky to have the assistance of the Arroyo Group to walk us through this and take other examples from the state of California, excuse me, where this code has originated. So we were very thrilled to have that fresh start from them. About 80% of the way came from them, and then we were able to confine it down to Sierra Madre standards. I think that there was nothing that challenged us overwhelmingly. It was more conforming what had been designed for multiple cities to the unique size and scale of city that we have here.
Thank you.
And I have one more question for you. Do you think that the objective design standards that you guys have worked so hard on will make it easier for us to meet an updated housing element in a couple of years?
I think that the objective design standards go more towards allowing us some kind of control that has been removed by the state through through SB 330 than it will affect. It is possible that we will see a speed up of housing due to this objective design standards, and that would be the best case. But I don't think that that was really the goal. This was more that the subjective design reviews that we had become so accustomed to in this city were no longer going to withstand a court case. And so this puts us leaps and bounds ahead of even some of our surrounding cities by having an objective design standard.
Very helpful, thank you.
Thank you so much.
So just to finish out the presentation and then be happy to take questions or walk through the document itself. But how will design review work? Great transition there from Chair Dennison. So basically, currently, under the municipal code, there are two different design review processes that the city is using. The general process is represented by that flow chart on the left side of the flow charts, the top left flow chart, right? Which is that the staff reviews the project and makes a recommendation to the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission, in its hearing, approves or denies or conditions the application. That will still be the case in most cases. The Planning Commission will review the review applications based on, they can still take into account older design guidelines, but they will also take into account these objective standards. Okay? The second one in the top right is called the Modified Staff Level Design Review Approval Process. This is a process that was put into place during the last housing element for specific types of projects and specific zones, such as the religious housing overlay zone. And that is a ministerial staff approval. Okay. However, there is a preliminary or advisory Planning Commission hearing that's conducted as a part of that process. So through that process, the director is able to take into account older design guidelines and these objective design standards. Now, finally, at the bottom here, you have the streamlined ministerial review process, which is what I mentioned before, projects that may qualify for SB 423. It's sort of similar to SB 9. It's not exactly SB 9, but Other projects that are specially designated by the state to have a streamlined ministerial process, those will go through either of the processes listed above. However, the difference is that only the objective design standards will be considered. Older design guidelines may not be considered as a part of that design review. And overall, as I mentioned, should it be taken to court, right? Any denial, complete denial of a project must be based on an objective standard, irregardless of the process that it has gone through. So if that hasn't confused you enough, anyway, I will at this point hand it back to staff, to Assistant Planner Wong.
But before you go anywhere, so
Yeah.
I want to understand this upper right one. Am I right in understanding for the staff review, the staff really gets to have three choices? They can approve it, they can deny it, or they can recommend for the Planning Commission review and approve and deny. Is that correct?
That is my understanding, and staff can correct me.
Okay. And what are the criteria between staff approving or denying and sending it to the Planning Commission? What are the, how do you decide which ones staff does and which one go to the Planning Commission?
Thank you for the question, Councilmember Parkhurst. From my understanding, whether the application will be reviewed staff leveled or by the Planning Commission, it's dependent in the zone that the application is applied for. For example, if it's a commercial or the religious housing overlay zone application, it would go through the ministerial or administrative process reviewed by staff. But if it were a proposal in the multifamily zone like R313 or R330, R320, those would be reviewed by the Planning Commission.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, so I have a question about the bottom box. You gave the example at the beginning of the presentation that a project that had 100% affordability and met some other criteria would qualify that. What other types of projects would require the streamlined process? And I guess just to preview where I'm going or where I'm thinking, what other types of projects that would likely be present in our city would I mean, because it does seem like if the only time that these objective standards are mandatory are with respect to that streamlined review process, and if that's the example that you gave, I'm just wondering what the applicability to our city is likely to be.
Right. Well, so again, on the top two, you still have the restriction that you cannot deny the project for inconformity with a non-objective standard. So an outright denial is not permissible for any type of project, right? Except to the extent that you have the objective standards and it violates one of those.
Then explain to me how we apply the non-objective standards without denying a project. Is it they're just suggestions? They're just part of the feedback that's given, and if the applicant decides not to take the suggestions, it doesn't affect the actual approval process. I'm not sure how the existing more subjective design standards are supposed to relate to these objective ones if they really aren't supposed to be a measure for a reason for denial.
If I could try to restate it, the existing design review standards that we have, some of the findings that we have to make for design review permit are subjective. For example, when it says that you have to make a finding that the development is consistent with the, I'm just making it up, look and feel of the neighborhood, something like that is subjective. Under the Housing Accountability Act, we cannot deny a project based on a subjective finding like that. So the result has been that 90% of our findings in the design review permit aren't applied at all to any multifamily project. What this objective design review gives us is the ability to apply a set of standards to every single multifamily project. And if they don't meet those standards, we can deny based on those grounds. Whereas we couldn't deny based on the subjective standards. We can deny based on these objective standards. And I think the distinction here is that the Planning Commission is going to be applying the objective standards to make sure that there's conformity with those as part of the design review permit process, if it goes to them. And if it's a ministerial project like the one at the bottom, the staff is going to be responsible for determining conformance of those objective design standards.
Madam Mayor? So I just want to make sure I understand when this applies. So it's for, per the document, it says for 2 or more housing units or commercial or mixed use. So let's say someone in an R1 is building a main house and an ADU, that's 2 living units. Do these standards now apply for that, or is it still under the residential low density standard?
Yeah, it would not apply to a single-family home in an ADU. ADUs, actually, there are a much more limited set of standards that can be applied to them in general.
So taking that a little bit further, so if somebody in R1 took a lot and did an SB9 lot split, would it then apply, or now they're 2 different lots, and if they put one house on each one, it wouldn't matter?
Yeah, SB9, you need a separate.
Yeah, so
for that.
So this doesn't apply in the R1. If you want to get multifamily in the R1, you can do it via an ADU process. You can do it via an SB9 process, but those have separate rules and limitations. You just updated your ADU ordinance with its own set of development standards. Coming is an updated SB9 ordinance with its own development standards. This is just for those zones that have that allow for multifamily development.
Thank you. That answered my question.
Thank you so much.
I have a couple more questions, just regarding the document. So can you tell me what the purpose of Appendix E is? Which
Yeah,
which it looks like it was research or?
Yeah, it was background research. We actually, the Planning Commission suggested or directed that we take those out.
Oh,
So they will be gone from the final.
okay, so nothing in Appendix E will be in the final document?
Nothing from Appendix E will be in the final. Yeah, but it is the background research that led to the development of the standards, and that'll be provided to city staff to have on
Okay,
file.
and so the reason I asked is because I was looking through the maps that are in there, and I noticed La Puente didn't have a map, but the other 2 cities, including Sierra Madre, did. The other 2 cities had their zoning maps, and we had our land use map. And we got into some trouble back in 2021 when we had our land use map and our zoning map were out of sync. So I didn't know how that could affect issues here if we had our one map relative to the other cities' maps. Ours was zoning, the other were land use. So I was just wanting to make sure that we're careful and we're not getting into trouble again.
Great catch. Thank you. But it'll be removed anyway.
Okay,
So
and, yeah,
it won't
okay.
be.
Chair Dennison, did you have something to add to that?
We felt that the work was important, and so we recommended that it be included just as background, as a handout from the planning department for those that wanted that, but that it wasn't germane to the objective design standards, and so we wanted it excluded from that. There will be a new section, or Appendix E, that will be the change log of when the objective design review standards are changed and what changes were made on each of those additions.
Oh,
That'll be the
definitely
new
like that.
Exhibit E.
And one other note about what Councilman Garcia said. You won't have that issue regarding the inconsistency this time around, because as you know, in a zoning code, you have uses and you have development standards. The general plan land use map deals with uses. The zoning map deals with uses. It doesn't deal with development standards. And this document is only about development standards. So you're not going to have that inconsistency with the maps because those maps are about uses. This document is about totally something else.
Thank you.
And the updated draft version has been emailed to all of us, so we can see it now if you'd like to. Thank you, Mr.
And I was wondering on the maps, there was a green zone that was highlighted about further research on all of the maps. Was that something that's important for us to pay attention to?
No, I don't think so. I
Because
think that was
each map had that, all three of the cities. So I was just wondering if it had something specific to this document, or, let me see what it said exactly. It's on page 60. District to
Oh.
study.
Yeah,
prevailing
so
character.
those were the areas that we conducted field work in.
Gotcha, okay, thank you so much.
I had a couple additional questions. So there were 3 cities that were involved in developing this, and it was supported by the COG. Is this something that the COG provided funding? Is it going to be part of for other cities in San Gabriel Valley? I'm trying to just square a little bit between the number of cities that were involved and then the COG being involved and SCAG being involved in it. I'm just confused by that.
Yeah, so the COG, I think, heard from its member jurisdictions, that this was something that was of interest and applied for a grant from the SCAG REAP 2.0 grant source to be able to fund this. The idea being that, because yes, a lot of design standards can be consistent across cities, not necessarily great use of resources for every city to go out, hire their own consultant, and do this completely in a vacuum. So as a part of the project, we developed a regional objective design standards, which actually we're still finalizing based on the comments we've received from the Planning Commission here and from you, the council, which will serve as a resource for any city that wants to use these standards going forward or adapt these standards to their particular needs. But the 4 cities that were involved throughout the process are the ones that, of course, have ended up with their own adoptable and adopted design standards.
Great. And then my last question is that there was mention in there that the objective design standards were to reinforcing pedestrian-oriented development. And can you tell me how because I'm trying to look at the 9 different standards and how those reinforce pedestrian-oriented development?
Yeah, it's woven throughout the document. I would say that there are a lot of components of making a walkable, pedestrian-friendly, village type environment. I mean, to think about Sierra Madre, that was really kind of our North Star. And so everything from, the first standard there, I think 1.1 is, all primary entries need to be, from the sidewalk, connected to the sidewalk through a walkway, right? So you can't just have the front door on the parking lot in the back and blank wall in the front, limitations on blank walls along streets, requiring the facades to be modulated so that there's visual interest along the street, requiring each of the residential units that are along the street to have a porch or a stoop or a patio that engages the street with that kind of, public to semi-public, semi-private space of the porch, to the, entering into the home. Minimum transparency, transparent windows required along the ground floor frontage, human-scaled materials such as brick, and things like that on the ground floor of mixed-use buildings. So it's throughout.
Great. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you so much. At this time, we are going to invite the public to provide public comment at this item. Is there any public comment for this item?
Madam Mayor, no speaker cards were submitted.
All right, are there any additional speakers? All right. So we can now open it up for discussion.
Well, I'll just say, having attended one of the planning commissions when this was discussed and seeing the level of detail that went into this, a huge and sincere thanks to the planning commission and all the members that spent countless hours going through and creating this. I think it's a great template for our city. And once again, it puts us ahead of the pack with other neighboring cities, which is something I'm always happy to hear about and happy to see us demonstrate our leadership.
I just feel like we've come full circle. When I was elected and this was a hugely hot issue, we were worried about being on the front edge of all of this because no one really knew what objective design standards were. And I echo Chair Dennison's point about the concern in the city about the enormity of this task and the ability of our already constrained staff to be able to put together something like this. So I think this is just the most amazing example of how we can leverage our regional resources on, both the COG and the SCAG level and be able to get something that we would never have been able to do resource and budget-wise in our city by having those, working with our regional partners. So I really think this is like the perfect example of the kinds of things that we should be doing to leverage our resources in a way that we get a great result. I really think that, again, to echo Councilmember Parker's point, thanks so much to the Planning Commission because they always do such a great job of making sure that all of these things fit within the broader, the broader context of our city and how much work they put into every project, and being able to put that into this document is really important. So I'm very much in favor, and I just want to thank everybody for all the hard work.
100% agree with you, Councilmember Krebs. When we get these mandates that come to us, that we can leverage our regional partnerships, so important. So kudos to staff and everybody that has pushed for this. And it's a very user-friendly document. When you look at this document, it's one of the most user-friendly documents I've seen. So I'm glad we're here and we're there, and we don't have to worry about it. So thanks to Planning Commission for all the hard work. And staff.
And I'd like to just say that been on this council long enough to know that development issues are always the most thorny issues we deal with, except for bears maybe. And this moves us a step towards fairness. I think applicants, when they come before government, just want to be treated fairly. And I think this really helps us in that regard. I think this gives us real credibility. And I think it's a tremendous job by our Planning Commission and all the parties involved.
I just want to concur. I mean, when we were looking at the different projects that are going to be coming through our city, and we look at the legislation that's coming down from the state, and it really was worrying us for so long that we would have no control over some of these buildings that might get built and what they would look like. And this has been a fantastic job, a great collaboration. And again, I always say this, the Planning Commission works endless hours. Their research ability is beyond, I think, what we have presented in front of us a lot of times on a basis of the length and the breadth of reports. So I just want to thank the Planning Commission as well as our Planning Department for really collaborating so well and always working so well together to come to the goals that we all envision in our town. So thank you.
With that, I'd like to move approval of ordinance 1495, adopting by reference the City of Sierra Madre Objective Design Standards.
For the first reading.
Yeah, for the first reading.
I'll second that motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And thank you so much. And again, we'll have the second reading on our next council meeting. All right, let's move on to consent items. Madam Clerk, can you please read the consent items by title only?
Yes, ma'am, thank you. The City Council is asked to consider a number of consent items. The first three are three different sets of minutes. Consent A is the approval of City Council meeting minutes from the regular City Council meeting on May 26. Councilmember Parkhurst offered some changes or updates to his council report. Consent item B is the meeting minutes from the May 27 special meeting, and no changes were submitted for that. And then consent item C is approval of city council meeting minutes from the special meeting on May 28th, 2026. The recommendation for all those is to approve. Consent item D is resolution 26-48, approval of warrants for payment. Staff's recommendation is that the city council approve. Resolution 2648. Consent E is resolution 26-51, authorizing a supplemental budget appropriation from the Transportation Development Act Fund in the amount of $10,039 for downtown bicycle infrastructure improvements. Staff's recommendation is that the city council approve resolution 26-51. And lastly, consent F is the resolution number 26-53, calling and giving notice of holding a general municipal election to be held on November 3rd, 2026, for the election of certain officers as required by the provisions of the laws of the state of California relating to general law cities. Additionally, resolution 26-54 is adopting regulations for candidates for elective office pertaining to candidate statements submitted to voters at the general municipal election to be held on November 3rd, 2026. And then the third election-related resolution is 26-55, requesting the Board of Supervisors of the County of Los Angeles to render specified services to the City of Los Angeles, City of Sierra Madre, relating to the conduct of a general municipal election to be held on November 3rd, 2026. Madam Mayor, the recommendation here is to approve all three resolutions. And that concludes our report.
Thank you. Do I have questions on item A? Item B?
Madam Mayor?
Ma-
Yes.
I just, one correction. I think the special meeting for Wednesday is actually listed as Tuesday.
The
Just a-
same comment. And on item C, it's the same issue.
Oh, okay, yeah. So both the special meetings have the wrong
Oh.
day. They have the correct date, but the wrong
Thank you.
day of the week.
Thank you. And how about any more for item B or C? All right. Item C, I do have quick questions. There were some large amounts, and I just wanted to confirm. The fiscal year 25-26 annual fuel purchase is what we use at our city yards, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And then the vehicle fleet tracking security system.
Yeah, I think it's the way it was categorized. That was actually a purchase of equipment for the police department to keep some of their more lethal supplies under lock and key, as well as vehicles.
Okay, thank you. That's great. Item D. I have some questions. The different costs weren't included in the amounts, and the report didn't list the Duro Fix Bit Plus. It did in the pictures and all, but in the report in the beginning, it didn't really list much about it. But I did see that it was going to be at Kirsten Court.
We're talking
Yeah,
about
Madam Mayor, I
item
was
D.
actually going to move that we move this
Okay,
to discussion.
Great, I agree.
I'm sorry, I thought you
That's
were on
item
D.
I'm sorry, I
It's item
thought it,
E.
oh, you're right, it is.
Okay.
My
Yeah,
numbers realigned for
wanted
some
to
reason on my notes.
question that.
Okay, so item D, nothing. Item E, I'd like a motion to move that.
So
I'm-
moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That'll be moved to discussion. And item F. All right. Is there any public comment for items on the consent calendar?
Madam Mayor, there are no speaker cards, but the city clerk's office did receive one email from John Lloyd that was forwarded to the city council for consideration.
Thank
That-
you.
That was for item E.
That's
It's
right. That's
been,
moved to discussion now.
That's right. Yes, sir.
Perfect.
Move to approve items A through D and item F.
second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, so we will move on to a new discussion item. Let's move on with E from consent first. Thank you so much, Director Dickerson.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and esteemed council members. So yes, item E for the TDA funding, yeah, that was a typo that didn't list that in there. We did have, and the individual pricing of the units weren't included as well. The plan right now is in Kirsten Court for these units. They're the same items, same bike racks that were installed at the public library. So they're a stainless steel unit, and then they have like a rubberized siding on it, which will protect the bikes from getting scratched and damaged. And then also, we won't have bikes leaning up against painted units that then start chipping, and then we have to go and repaint them. So we're looking to standardize that type of bike rack throughout the city. These are the first orders we're gonna go through, and what we'll do is, in a future council meeting, we'll bring back a conceptual idea and location of the bike racks. Because right now, some of the bike racks in Kirsten Court and along the boulevard impinge into the pedestrian traffic area. So we'll be looking to orientate them the right way, so when the bike is in the rack, it's not sticking out into the path of travel for pedestrians. And then also the ones that are kind of right there where all the furniture is in Kirsten Court that kind of impinges on tables and chairs as well. So that'll come back probably at a future council meeting. Hopefully we can get it on the first one in July, where we'll have a conceptual idea of where it's at. And then as we move forward with purchasing more bike racks, we're gonna standardize throughout the city and start replacing a bunch of the other ones. We'll probably have ones that we have extra from this order that don't all fit in Kirsten Court. We're looking at replacing some in Memorial Park. But like I said, we'll have a conceptual drawing of idea of where they're gonna be located down in the Kirsten Court and the Boulevard area and move forward.
Director Dickinson, do you plan to create any bike corrals as a part of this? Is that part of the conceptual plans or the considerations in those?
That is actually one of the things we're looking at ordering too, is like a large corral that'll house a bunch of bikes all at once. And looking at someplace in the downtown area for that, so they can all be parked in one area. Potentially, we'll be bringing back, we have some parking spots at downtown area that actually we're looking to probably convert to these bike corrals, because they impinge onto, the space is actually back into crosswalk areas. So that's really a safety hazard. They're not in the most ideal locations because they're a little bit further away from Kirsten Court area. We got one up on North the Boulevard. We got the one in front of the pharmacy. But we're also, Mike and I took a walk downtown, and we're looking at potentially one actually in the parking area of Kirsten Court, probably more ones that are facing the courtyard, the big courtyard area towards the bus stop. One of those potential spots could be a bike rack area, the bike corral.
You're considering the area in front of BMO right next to OPIT as a potential corral area?
Potentially, that could be one as well, because we do have the coffee shop and stuff right there.
Will there be more than one repair station?
As we move forward, there probably will be more repair stations. The ones that have the e-charging, those we'll have to look at where we can get electricity from, that's powered by electricity from the city, as opposed to, because a lot of the street lights are Edison lights, so it's probably on their power, so we can't impinge off of their power. So we got to find out where our pedestals are. I see you laughing, Councilmember.
Sorry.
It's a good idea, but if they catch us, we could be in a world of, hey, you're right up my alley. We find their.
I was just thinking about the, neighbors borrowing people's,
Oh.
their cable from back when.
Well, it also comes back to the lights at Happy's, the lady that wanted to do the mural and the lights, and that's not the city's,
Right,
and where that actually power comes from for those lights, which I have no clue.
right.
But so we'll be looking at that as where we can get power from for the e-bike racks as well.
I like the Air Kit Prime for the students and the kids and other visitors. I don't necessarily want to encourage our Saturday cruise bicyclists from taking over the town more than they already have. But I'd also wonder if we can look at the parks and the fields, especially the baseball fields in that recreation area.
That's the plan going forward, as we have all different, these TDA funds that come up every year, is doing that as we move forward.
Great.
Do you have the staff capacity to put together the full plan for the city? I mean, I don't know that it takes a whole lot, but we're adding on more than just, the boulevard. We're adding on parks and everything else. I don't know what the level of effort, if that's significant or not.
It's not a large effort.
Okay.
Eric, one of my staff members, is already ready to put something together. He's the one that, went with these bike racks, told me to get from AMG, the contractor for the library, to find out who those were, because he's an avid biker and runner, so he's very in tune with the biking community, especially like these types of racks, because most of these people have $500, $1,000, $2,000 bikes, and they don't want to lean them up against a metal bike rack and have them scratched up. So it'll be, Councilmember Parker's, it'll just be like a little overview of the downtown, and we'll place these, he can, you know, put these in there in various locations, and then
Just let me follow up real quick. Following up on that too, and bandwidth of our departments. Today, we attended, I did attend, and I think you might have joined later too, the SCAG's toolkit. They're revamping their toolkit. It's 10 years old now. And speaking of how we just use SCAG funds to finish our design review, our design objectives, they also have a toolkit ready with grant money, which we can use already, to look at the plans of where to put things, look at other cities where what works best, what to think of that we don't naturally think of, like that shouldn't be right there. It actually is inhibiting passerbys or those kinds of things. So I'll share the notes with you today, but there'll be a recording that you can share, and they have a whole website on SCAG just for, it's called Go Human. And signage and everything, so, thank you.
And the TDA funds are only for the physical structures, so we'll
It's-
have to do the electrification of those two racks ourselves just with Public Works and
Correct.
installation.
Yep, that is correct. So one place I'm already looking at, where we had the one in front of Syndicate down there, the one bike rack that covered they put in place to cover the electric, I guess that was in the planner beforehand, and then when they widened the sidewalk, and they didn't think to move it out of the way, that's in the plans. We just got to get somebody one of our staff that can do some electrical work, that can take that out of the way and put it back and just pull it back in the planner, but we got to find out where that circuit comes from so we can turn the breaker off, and then we'll sever it, pull that power back, and that can be the power that comes to an electrified bike rack. There we'd have to modify some stuff, because right next to that tree well area is there's a bench there, so we may have to relocate the bench to then put an electrified bike rack there.
Great, thank you.
I love this. I keep seeing students with their bikes, like walking their electric bikes because they ran out of power in certain spots. So I appreciate the work you're doing on this.
That's also not a bad thing, frankly.
It's been-
Given the way they ride
She
them.
come from Pasadena High School.
Well, Mike and I can attest, if we put some of the electric ones in the Memorial Park, they'll get used from all the youngsters that utilize like to ride in the park there in the grassy area.
Yes, I would love some signage on the bike racks or somewhere nearby that's kind of helps. Where is it safe to ride? Where is it not appropriate to ride? Any more questions? All right, I'd like to open this up for public comment for item E. Now in discussion.
This is the item that City Clerk's office received the email for, and there are no speaker cards submitted.
Thank you. All right, is there discussion?
Well, I think you already raised the reason that struck my desire to pull this for discussion, is I'm not super excited about further extending the horde of bicyclists over the weekend, encouraging them to then fix their bikes, encouraging along with whatever else they're doing. So that was my only concern, is in terms of location, and if we are sort of thinking about encouraging multiple locations of gatherings, that they're not so concentrated, that maybe putting the repair station somewhere else, such as Memorial Park or somewhere else, would actually maybe encourage some thinning of the herd.
I agree, and it's also the location would just be better, just because it's so congested already down in the middle of Kirsten Court. It'd be tougher for someone to be there to repair their bikes, and they do have the gas stations there that are very open with air and with tubes, and that's been their little community help. So I would agree that we move it. I do not want to encourage the chaos.
Yeah, you wouldn't know it, but I used to do a lot of biking. It was mainly mountain biking. But I think if management analyst Lozick was here, he could speak to it. But I'm assuming there's going to be Schrader valves, and most bikes that you see have the Presta valves rather than Schrader. So the Saturday riders, and most of them carry their own little mini repair kits and CO2 pumps. So I don't know that we'll have that huge issue with this repair. I think this is more I think it's geared more to the recreational rider than the serious weekend warrior. That's my understanding. But
Then again, it might be better at Memorial Park.
Yeah, I still think that space constraints, yeah, I don't know that we want people maneuvering their bike and, around a fixed station in a fairly constrained space.
yeah, that's true, yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that totally.
So I'm excited about this. I do think, before we go too far, I think it draws on some of the comments of others, is to have a plan of the location, particularly the repair station, but also where we've got all the other, where we'd have the other biking rack, thank you, the rack locations. And then the plan for thinking about it going forward. Kind of putting them in some places where we get them, make sure they're not on the sidewalk. I think I'll echo what Director Dickinson said. We literally have some bike racks where if you were to correctly lock your bike to them, the rear of the bike would impinge in the walkway so that it would make it difficult for a pedestrian to get by. And we've got some that are oriented perpendicular to each other. You go down the street and one is parallel to the street and the next one is perpendicular. And so having some consistency in both the orientation and the look, I'm excited about. I think this is a great thing forward. I want to thank staff, particularly Analyst Lodzik, for his enthusiasm and work on this.
Yeah, and I recall, just as a comment, some of those bike racks were oriented the way they were. If you recall, when we did the update of the widening of the sidewalks, those were when those were put in. It was for safety issues because we had some curbs that were low and not easy to see. People were stepping off and injuring themselves. So some of those racks were actually placed to impede pedestrians from rolling ankles or skinning knees. But they're not very useful for bike racks, just for pedestrian hurting, I guess.
All right, is there any more discussion? I think staff has enough direction moving forward with the plans, thank you.
We do need to move approval of it because it is a.
That's what I'm ready
funding-
for.
Well, then let's see, what is it? I'll move approval of resolution 2651, authorizing supplemental budget appropriation from the Transportation Development Act Fund in the amount of $10,039 for downtown bicycle infrastructure improvements.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Great. All right, discussion item A, Library and Community Services Director Leila Arciero.
I'm back. Thank you, Mayor Lowe, Mayor Pro Tem Goss, and our Honorable City Councilor. I'm Leila Arcero, your friendly neighborhood library and community services director, and we're here to talk about flags. Hooray. So if you didn't know, our current flag was actually part of a centennial celebration. So it was a contest, and it was Hugh Von Delden that won the contest. So that is who made our current flag. And right now, we're hoping to talk about the Sierra Madre Events Committee being able to reproduce the flag. There's no place currently that you can purchase or buy the flag, so they're hoping to be able to have that opportunity to fundraise for a lot of our community events, the third and fourth celebrations particularly. So I'm here to answer any of your questions, but we're hoping to put some parameters on it so that it's not just that they can reproduce forever or that they can alter or change anything. So in the staff report, we did mention that those are what we would like to make sure we're ahead of. And it is the official city flag, so that is something else to consider. So we wanted to bring it to council to make sure that we all were on the same page and we were following things as best as we can. So happy to answer any questions. But
Do we currently have the flag flying anywhere in Sierra Madre?
it's behind you, but no.
Flying?
No, I don't think it's flying anywhere currently.
I believe it got, I remember we had one that was shredded in the 2011 windstorm that we
Oh,
took
yeah.
down. I think that might have been the last time we had one flying.
I'm just, practically speaking, I assume that they're going to reproduce it at a smaller size than the one sitting behind us, right? I mean, that's
I think
quite
they
large.
wanted to do some that people could fly in their homes, which I think are still not quite that big. So yes, it would be smaller, but especially for the 4th of July to have the smaller ones that you can wave
Oh,
around.
okay, great.
Oh, that's cute.
Are they also looking to reproduce it for like hats and shirts and things of that nature, or just flags?
I believe it's just flags. I think we put in the language that they're only allowed to reproduce it as a flag and not put it on other merchandise.
Could we
But
add,
that's up to you.
They're pretty creative. I'd like to, personally, we're not in discussion yet.
could we also add one to our flying in our city hall?
I believe so. I think that might be, where'd it go? That might be a public works question. But I can't imagine we wouldn't be able to add it. I think right now we just have the California and the American flag. So let's get this, we'll
Thank
have all three.
Yes. Okay, any more questions? All right. I'd like to now open this up for public comment on item A regarding the flags used with the Sierra Madre Events Committee.
Madam Mayor, we did not receive any speaker cards.
Discussion? Bless you. Did you have
So-
discussion?
Yeah, I mean, personally, I'd like to even extend the use beyond just flags, because I'd like a hat with our flag on it, personally. I don't know, but the other thing that I'm concerned about is, and it's not, I'm not sure it's in the language. I know our city seal implies an official Sierra Madre endorsement or something of that nature. I just want to make sure that it's not being used, if we allow use beyond an actual flag, that it's not being used as an implication of an official city endorsement or document. But we don't have that problem if we don't go beyond just flags.
So do we have a policy around the logo?
You cannot use our logo.
Do we have an official policy?
I haven't seen an official policy. I know it's in the municipal code.
Okay.
That the city manager is the keeper of the seal of the logo, which is trademarked and cannot be reproduced without the express written consent of the NFL, right? I mean, it's that kind of thing, so.
So it's for the logo.
It's just for the logo. It's
Right.
the one with the wisteria vine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This one, yeah.
Which is separate and apart from.
Right, no, and that's why I asked. So is it, I mean, do we need to, I can't imagine we need anything separate than the code on this. Is having it, do they need to be linked in any way? Do we need to have the same type of policy?
Well, I think we were contemplating doing some type of MOU with the Special Events Committee that would expressly, state how they could reproduce the flag and
Just
for
the
what
flag.
purposes. So I think that alone would control
Okay.
its use.
And do we have an official city seal?
Not a seal,
Okay,
it's just the logo.
just this logo? Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
And some cities have a seal, and then they have their own like branded logo,
Okay.
which are two distinct, illustrations.
Got it.
Councilmember Parkhurst, the city clerk's office has the city's official seal for legal documents,
Is it,
but
The ci-
it's not the city's logo. It has the incorporation date.
Oh.
It's in,
Yeah,
it's
it's an
in an
embossed
embosser.
thing you squeeze down.
I stand corrected. I haven't seen it.
But it's not, we don't have it for
Yeah.
paraphernalia or anything else. Yeah.
The only concern that I have is that, we have two logos, one with the vine, one without the vine. We now have a seal that I didn't know we had. And then we have a flag. And all four of them are not really tied to the other. So if we're talking about, a city brand, you would want to see something that had sort of variations on a theme. And some of these are sort of distinct and separate from one another. It's not entirely problematic, but if you wanted a consistent look and feel, the same thing if you started a business and you had a short logo, a long form logo, what that would look like. We haven't contemplated that or explored that yet.
I'd be in favor of granting the request as given and not expanding it, because I do think that that creates a whole other Pandora's box of concerns, perhaps, and let them do the flag, and then if it works out, then we can explore other uses, I suppose.
And they weren't asking for more.
No, I was more curious than anything. I agree with you, Councilmember Crepes.
I think I was the one opening the box.
All right. Do I have a motion?
I move to authorize the Sierra Madre Events Committee use and reproduction of the city flag as presented.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, let's move forward to discussion item B from Public Works Director Brian Dickinson.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and council members. Tonight, this is I don't have my agenda. Here we go. This is for the intention to levy the 2026-2027 downtown landscaping and lighting maintenance district assessments. So previous meeting, we had our initiation, and then we'll be presenting the engineer's report, and then the subsequent meeting, we'll have the public hearing for adoption and levying of the fees. So I will open it up to any questions.
So just so I'm clear, so the first one was authorizing to get the engineer.
Yep.
This one is doing the engineering, so this is step 2. What are the following steps in the process?
Then the following step is levying the fee.
Levying the fee.
Which will
Okay.
be the next meeting. So we have to have a public hearing to levy the fees, and then the fees will be levied, approved by council, and then we'll levy the fees and put them on the tax roll.
And what are the differences in this one with the fees compared to in the past? Or we're not at the fees part. What are the differences in the engineering report compared to what we've done in the past in the lighting district?
As you'll recall, we do no longer have maintenance for the parking lots. We cannot no longer use the assessments for parking lot maintenance. And then we had to, some modifications have been to a couple of the parcels, which is Bethany Church and then the utility building across the street on the southeast corner, because originally they were using their frontage on Highland, which has no maintenance purposes. There's no maintenance that's done along there like you have along Baldwin Avenue with the trees, electrical, and lighting that gets put up. There is nothing along Highland, but originally they were counting that frontage on Highland as part of their assessment. So that has now been backed out because we don't do any maintenance along the Highland Avenue aspect of it. So that's been removed out, and their assessment has been modified, and then we'll be reimbursing them for the past collection of assessments.
I mean, should there be? I mean, it's basically just kind of dirt and stumps, if I remember correctly.
That's why there's no assessment, because there is no vegetation. In front of Bethany on Highland, there's like one tree, but there's no, like everything you have along the boulevard and Baldwin right there, you have electrical stub outs and electrical connections, so we put the lights on the trees and everything, and then you have all the vegetation along there.
And we're responsible for that area, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
so that's part of the LLMD, so it's maintained by us.
Okay.
And in front of Bethany, you have the two little bump outs that have all the nice flowered plants in there, colored flowers.
So when we consolidated the 4 districts into the 1, we lost, it sounds like a lot of services to our downtown region. The parking lot no longer, how was the water main and road validated then?
Water main would be done through your water sewer fund, through your enterprise fund. Because
But the
that's a
roads we
benefit, that's a
used-
benefit throughout the city, because all your water main benefits your whole city, because your water's flowing throughout your whole city, even though it's passing through the downtown area.
I meant the project itself. We redid the water main down there with that cost, but then the roads were redone with this funding. The sidewalks, that's what I thought we understood. I can go back and look again.
No, the roads weren't done with this
$1 million.
funding.
Yes.
It was just
No?
out of the general fund,
Okay, so then the sidewalks were redone.
also not out of this fund.
Are you sure about that? Because I could have sworn that's what our last director, can go back and look at it, but I think he said part of it was coming from the district funds.
Maybe part, but
Yeah.
not the line, not the line share.
So we're excluding parking lots and we're adding parks, is what I see.
Parks maintenance has always been
It's
there.
always been there.
Have we always used that?
Yeah, there's always been park maintenance funds in there.
And we do parking lot maintenance, but it's for the lighting and the landscaping within the
And we
parking
had to
lots
use the
themselves.
general fund this time to do the,
That was for the resurfacing, that was for the resurfacing.
which we didn't do prior. But prior to this, when we had the 4 districts, it was included in that.
I think one of the districts was a parking district that had its own separate assessment, but that was removed when the districts were consolidated into one.
So I'm just noticing that we've now added a new cost to our general fund when prior we didn't because it was paid through the districts.
If I may on that?
Yes.
I think, if I remember correctly, looking up, I got to verify again, although it's taking out funds from somewhere else, is I think we can use some of our special revenue funds, like we use for street maintenance, for parking lot maintenance.
Okay.
I don't remember which fund it was, but I remember looking up some stuff, and if I recall correctly, we can use some of those funds for parking lot maintenance.
I think if it was part of a larger project, was part of the language in that, I did read that. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, just to clarify, because this is my recollection from when these districts were combined, is that there were two main funds, one of which was very restricted in use and had a lot of money, one of which had very little money and had broader application. And so the rationale for the combination was to be able to use the money as a general pot for multiple uses. So I think I don't know which was which in terms of the parking versus the lighting, but I do know that I don't think we've lost anything per se because we were able to actually access the funds that were accumulating in the one district that we weren't able to use at all. And so to the extent that there might be some uses that are now more restricted, I think that would be offset by the amount of money that we were able to then tap into that was otherwise just over accumulating and we were never going to be able to expend.
I did see, when we did the main downtown redo and the sidewalks, it was on the capital project list for the next year to look at realigning the parking lots and seeing if we could offer more parking because we were losing 3 parking spots on the main road due to the new construction. And so we were looking to realign the parking lots because the parking lots were going to be the project in the next year, in the next fiscal year. That never happened, of course, and it just got redone this last year, but during that presentation, that's what I'm saying is just now we did this last time, we paid for those parking lots out of a general fund.
Yeah, and I think it's not because the underlying district before had more authority or more powers than the existing one. I think it's because the existing one, there was a misinterpretation of what the existing one can do, and we've since corrected that interpretation. So
Okay.
So is it fair to say that if we were using the prior separate fund for that purpose, that was probably also a misinterpretation? And so there really hasn't been a change. It's just we've rectified the mistake.
right, so as you remembered it correctly, we had a fund. It was an ad valorem assessment district, and it was collecting a lot of money, and it was very limited in what we could use it for. So we decided to merge that ad valorem district with the existing lighting and landscaping maintenance district. Well, actually, we created a new one, but using the same landscape and lighting maintenance district law. We created a new one. We funneled all the money into that so we could use a bigger pool of funds
Okay.
for that purpose. But I think, again, it stemmed from a misunderstanding of what the funds could be used for, not because
Changed our,
the powers were somehow different.
And if I can just add 2 more comments, at the budget study sessions, right, the council saw a formal capital improvement program that tied out sources and uses to various projects. So we've done a better job this year at identifying funds and the applicable uses of those funds for projects, and then documenting it for posterity. So if Brian or I get hit by a bus, the next public works director and city manager can pick up the document and say, okay, this is what we're doing. The other piece is we are working with the city attorney and public works and NBS to take a further, deeper dive into some of the other assessment districts that the city currently has and start documenting what we're assessing those districts for and what applicable uses those funds can be allocated to for future capital improvement or maintenance projects and things of that nature. So we are trying to get our arms around all things sort of special assessment fund and come back to you with a cleaner picture of what that looks like.
And then when it came to the costs, I believe I was looking at the costs of what we were estimating annually for needs. And the only thing I didn't see on there was the lighting that we add, like especially at the holidays. That was $29,000.
It's listed in the engineer's report as downtown special event support.
There's a footnote 1 that says litter removal, beautification, holiday decorations. And I think
Okay.
lighting would be under decorations.
That's correct.
And is the amount down there?
Yes,
It's 35,000.
35,000, yeah.
Okay, okay, there we go. Thank you.
So, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I know previously, I think the furniture in Kirsting Court was part of the park, and we could replace that expensive furniture that either goes missing or gets destroyed. We wanted some clarity. I think I requested some clarity on what we can use the monies for in this new engineer's report. I don't see clarity on that. So under parks maintenance, does that include the replacement of furniture?
I think it's mainly the maintenance of Memorial Park.
Oh,
I'll have to verify if it includes the furniture.
because Kirsting Court is a park.
Yeah, that's right, you guys, it is. I'll have to verify if that is the case. Let me make a note of that.
I'd like to go back to the Baldwin and Highland, and I think it's a Frontier building that's there. So it looks like on the Baldwin side, there is nothing there. I mean, they've got their own area that's not landscaped. But there is that strip on Highland there where there is no landscaping, but, it is kind of dumpy, and it's our area. Should we push back and at least have that in there as the assessment and be able to do something with it? I mean, even just, some sort of ground cover or something there, since it is part of a city responsibility?
We, because when this came about, because this question came about mainly from Bethany Church, because they were questioning their assessment based on more of what's on Highland and stuff. So then it was brought to my attention. So inquiring with senior management analyst Carlson, he said, as far as he can remember, there hasn't been much maintenance done on Highland. So that's why we removed all of that from there. We removed the Highland portion from the Verizon portion and Bethany Church.
And I can understand Bethany. I mean, there's not a lot, well, yeah, there isn't a lot there, but, we've got that one kind of planter area that's on the other side of the street. I assume that's part of the assessment. I just would hate to, if we have the opportunity to actually, make parts of this town look nice, and we're giving away revenue, even if it's a small amount, I'm a little hesitant to that part.
I would say then what we'd have to do in the future is get some plant material in there, because right now there is nothing.
No, I agree.
There's nothing to maintain, so the city would have to do some expenditure up front. So we'd have to budget for plant material and come up what kind of palette we want in there, whether we want to go with something that's similar to what's out front here, or some other type of drought-tolerant planting.
So if we were to do that, then we could, in the future, assess that district a fee for that. So we're not closing the door on it by not assessing it right now.
Yeah, because from what Carlson said, there hasn't been maintenance done in the past few years on there, so there is nothing to really assess
Okay.
them for. So we'd have to put plant material in there and then make sure we're putting that back in on the maintenance schedule.
Got it. Thank you.
Any more questions? All right, at this time, I'd like to open this up for public comment on Resolution 2642 regarding the Downtown Landscaping Lighting Maintenance District assessments.
Madam Mayor, we have no speaker cards submitted.
All right, discussion?
Do
Move
we-
to approve,
Sorry, do we have like a plan or a objective for the landscaping and lighting in the area? I mean, it seems, maybe I'm completely off. It seems a little haphazard.
You mean for the district? Like,
Yeah.
is there like a master plan of planting and not to my knowledge?
Okay.
I believe there was some removal of the ficus trees, I believe, at some point, and then replacing them. And then when the sidewalks got redone, a lot of that was taken up, and the trees were replaced, what was that, 2 years ago? So I think, I mean, beyond that,
Do other cities have like landscaping plans for their downtown areas or for, okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's somewhat common. I don't know that we necessarily need to, develop a landscape plan per se, as much as we just come up with a palette and we're talking about branding, variations on the theme.
Right.
And we just plant that in the downtown.
Okay. I'm sorry I interrupted you.
Oh,
Councilmember
sorry,
Creeps,
no.
But I understand where you're going, and I'm completely in support.
I move to approve Resolution 2642.
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Let's move on to item C, Director Lynn. Planner Wolf.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and council members. Just to recap from our last meeting, public facility fees are imposed on the creation of any new dwelling unit in the city, and they are the city's version of an impact fee or development impact fee. Under the guidance of City Council back in 2021, imposing these fees has been suspended for all new creations of ADUs. Up until September of 2024, only 2 new construction ADUs could be permitted on a multifamily residence. Now with the new state laws, up to 8 ADUs can be constructed on a multifamily residence. Similarly, with single-family properties prior to 2025, only 1 junior ADU and 1 regular ADU could be built on a single-family property, and now up to 4 ADUs can be built on a single-family property. So under the state law, municipalities may charge an impact fee for ADUs that are larger than 750 square feet, as long as it is reduced proportional to the size of the primary dwelling unit. On May 12th, the City Council discussed the potential impact that the new laws have on the population growth and acknowledged the effect of mitigation in funding improvements to facilities used by the public, and directed staff to prepare a resolution rescinding the suspension of imposing the public facility fees for ADUs and providing a structured fee waiver based on the number of ADUs. So Resolution 26-50 is presented to you today. It ensures that public facility fees are charged proportionally only for ADUs that are larger than 750 square feet, and provides a 75% waiver if it is the first ADU, a 25% waiver if it's the second ADU, and no waiver if it's the third ADU or any greater than that. This resolution would take effect on July 1st, 2026, and be enforceable on any new applications received on or after that date. The fee is accrued based on the rate effective at the time the application is submitted and due payable at the completion of the construction and prior to the issuance of the certificate of occupancy. The resolution also accounts for existing ADUs and multiple ADUs proposed under one or multiple applications at the same time. The resolution currently excludes junior ADUs from being counted since the definition, by definition, it cannot meet the size where any city may impose a fee upon that, because it is limited to a square footage of 500 square feet. The resolution is drafted this way to be less punitive to property owners with existing junior ADUs who would never be eligible for a 75% fee waiver if a junior ADU were to be counted. However, the City Council does have the option of modifying the resolution so that junior ADUs are also counted as one of the 4, or part of that fee structure. And the highlighted portions in Resolution 26-50 would need to be struck if that would, if that is the intent of the council. The council also had some interest in some statistics, which I have now for you. The median size of a single-family dwelling in citywide is 1,833. That compares to the ADU applications we received of 1,792. 61% of ADUs in our ADU applications over the past 6 years were less than or equal to 750 square feet, would thus not be subject to these fees. And the proportional average between an ADU size and a single-family dwelling size is 33.7%. And lastly, there is another statistic I have here. 18.3% of the single-family dwellings within Sierra Madre would be equal to or less than the maximum size of an ADU at 1,200 square feet. So it would then not have a proportional reduction under state law. That concludes my presentation. I'm open for any questions.
Can you say that last statistic again?
Of all single-family dwellings in the city, only 18.3% of them are 1,200 square feet or less, which means that they potentially could not benefit from a proportional size reduction of the fee.
And for those homes, are they on lots where you could put an ADU? I'd imagine that those small homes may be up in the canyon where there isn't any place where you could stick an ADU. Do you happen to know that offhand?
Theoretically, it would be possible, and the only reason I can say that is because you can convert a part of the existing home.
On that note, could you explain, just for the discussion purposes, the definition of a junior ADU?
A junior ADU is a conversion of an existing single-family dwelling, which contains full living facilities, but it may optionally have no bathroom if it shares a bathroom facility with its attached single-family dwelling. Its size is limited to 500 square feet of interior livable space, and it can include an efficiency kitchen.
And remind me, these are ones that are actually attached or contained within the existing dwelling?
They will always be contained within the existing dwelling.
Okay.
Any more questions? All right, I'd like to move forward with public comment.
No speaker cards were submitted, ma'am.
Discussion? I think we did a pretty great job of sealing up the language, and planning department did a great job at interpreting those and pushing forward with a great resolution that was succinct and understandable.
Yeah, I'd echo that. I think they did a really good job of channeling what our intent was and listening to our comments.
Agreed.
Before we get into any discussion over the JADU point, can I just ask a procedural question? Why is this as a resolution versus a code amendment? And I ask that because I suspect that we've done a lot of things over the years as a city council in resolution that has been lost to, no one's sort of pouring through resolutions. So I wonder, is this required to do it in this format? Because I just worry that, I mean, obviously we're focused on this now, and obviously the planning department is going to be, focused on the fees, but is there a reason why we did it by resolution and not an actual in the code, so it's, easy to locate?
So the code currently reads, it allows for the maximum to be charged to the applicant. And this resolution is basically authorizing something less than that maximum. And the reason we did it via resolution is only because resolutions are easy to change, because they take effect immediately, whereas ordinances require 2 readings.
Any more discussion?
So there's an existing resolution that says that the first ADU is exempt from all, and this is overriding that, or that's the ordinance?
Says full charge.
Yeah, so the ordinance contemplates whatever is already in the government code, which is charging the full amount. And this resolution would be authorizing the city to charge a lesser amount.
No, my question is, was there an existing?
There was not.
It was just informal.
It was
fee waiver?
Yeah, we tried to look for it, and we weren't able to identify a formal resolution that was adopted by the city council that reduced that fee.
So when the staff report talks about in 2021, we wanted to waive the fees, we don't know the source of that.
That is correct. That was simply found just by looking at the videos itself. It wasn't captured in minutes. But that was something that that staff had honored and respected of city council at that time.
It was verbal direction.
And so now the first ADU will be at 25%.
The first ADU will be at 25%, but part of the consideration for today is determining whether or not you want to count JADUs. Planner Wolf and I, we tried to capture in the staff report what the intention was of the city council, and both of us weren't sure. So,
Junior ADUs are 500 square feet.
but as Planner Wolf pointed out, in order to have a single family home and potentially have 4 ADUs on the same lot, you have to count a JADU as one of those 4.
Okay.
Otherwise, you're limited to 3. So you can get potentially 3 ADUs and 1 JADU. That's how you get to 4 additional ADUs.
Okay.
The question is, do you want those JADUs to count toward that number? So how this might come up is if someone has an existing home and a JADU, they wouldn't be charged anything on the JADU, but that second ADU that comes about would only get the 25% discount. If you don't count the JADU, then when they want to build that new ADU, that ADU is going to get the 75% discount.
So the question is, do we think that a JADU increases the impact to the city, therefore charge an impact fee per se, because we're doing it on the margin, on the next? But JADUs only sit within the footprint of something that is already existing and theoretically has already been charged an impact fee.
It can be added on.
Which is also true of attached ADUs as well. An attached ADU can simply be a conversion of an existing structure. So the difference between the two is that JADUs are limited to 500 square feet, whereas an attached ADU can be, you can turn a larger room, one that's greater than 500 square feet, a 1,000-foot room, into an attached ADU.
But we don't charge impact fees to somebody expanding their home.
We don't charge impact fees to someone expanding their home, no.
But I guess it's because it's my version is that when you're expanding your house, you're doing it for yourself and your family. My idea of attaching or an attached ADU or JADU is that you're adding another person, or people living in your home. So I guess the impact is because you have more people and more use versus your own home and adding more space for yourself. Does that seem?
I mean, we're making generalizations
Yeah.
regardless, right? We're not
But I'm
really
thinking
gonna
that's why
people
they have
do this.
impact fees for ADUs versus not because you expand your home.
So you can have an ADU that's attached, right?
Correct.
So, and it would be, so the difference between a JADU and an ADU is one's 500 and the other is 750, and a JADU does not have its own bathroom.
Potentially.
It's allowed
A
to not have-
JADU, yeah, correct. A JADU can have its own bathroom, but it's not required.
Okay,
And they
but-
can have a kitchenette.
Okay,
Smaller.
but it's 500 square feet is really what defines a JADU. So up to 500 is a JADU, 500 to 750 is an ADU.
500 to 1,200.
500, that's right, to 1,200. Got it.
Just a point of clarity, an ADU, and this is confusing, I know, but an ADU and a JADU, physically speaking, might not see any differences at all, because an ADU doesn't have to be greater than 500 square feet. We can have an ADU be less than 500 square feet and be distinct on its own, such as, for example, the conversion of a detached garage, which is usually typically 400 square feet. And if it doesn't involve any other expansions, that would be a detached ADU of 400 square feet. It's not a JADU, and we know that, but we can attribute that same kind of logic to the conversion of, say, an attached garage. It doesn't have to be a JADU, it could just be a regular ADU.
So council member, you might ask, then what's the advantage? Why even have a JADU? And the answer is more units on site, because state law recognizes these as 2 different types of ADUs with using an umbrella term. So you can have whereas you can't have two attached ADUs per se, but you can have a JADU and an attached ADU within the same envelope of the home.
After all of that, I feel like if the intent of this was to discourage creative use of our code to a developer's advantage, I would say let's treat JADUs the same as any other ADU, because to your point, like whether it's a JADU or an attached ADU is gonna be hair splitting. And I think we always have the opportunity to waive the application if someone truly has, if I had one right now and I came to you and said, I want to build an ADU, you know, and presented a case such that it made sense for the ADU not to be counted, we always have the opportunity to waive that application, correct?
The JADU would never be charged.
Well, not charged, but we have the ability to not count the existing JADU for purposes of applying the fee. We could always create we could always make an exception for a particular project. correct?
By amending your resolution only, not on an ad hoc
Oh,
basis.
okay. Well, then never mind.
Yeah, and remember, this only applies to things larger than 750 square
Yep.
feet. And
Yeah.
from the statistics in the previous report, the average is less than 750.
Well, and only 40% of what gets applied has been built has been in excess of 704. I don't know. I'm for treating them all the same. I just think it
too.
creates a lot of
too.
complication.
Me
Yeah,
too.
yeah.
So then, if we're at that point, then I'd move to adopt Resolution 2650. I think that's right. And striking the highlighted area around JADUs.
Can I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Do we have items for future agendas?
Madam Mayor.
Yes.
So it was unfortunate to hear that we did not get the Caltrans grant. So I would love staff to come back with a plan for the circulation element, for what are our options going forward, what are the costs, and where we can go with that. So that's one item. I have two others. One, I'd like staff to investigate potentially applying the UUT to streaming services. I understand the city of Santa Barbara has done that and is generating revenue applying a UUT to streaming.
For what?
Streaming,
Oh, streaming.
yeah. Hulu,
I heard
Disney.
screaming. I was like, what?
And then I'd like to have an update on the solar panels over at the city yards, the 500 kilowatt array there. What savings have we got? We were about 5 years into it. And then any damage and repair plans for them. I've heard some stories from residents that we have some that are damaged that haven't been repaired, and kind of what's the status of that, and how are we dealing with the repaired ones and preventing them from the future? Or at one point, we're going to put some trees up there, and they're not there, so a report around that.
Can I ask you a quick question about the UT? It also doesn't cover Wi-Fi, correct? It only
Yeah.
covers,
You can't tax the internet.
yeah, you can't text the internet, so it does not count Wi-Fi.
No, but
Internet.
apparently the services that come over it, you might be able to tax,
Got it.
which is interesting.
Anything else? So in closing tonight, I'd like to honor one of our Citizens of the Year from 2013. We lost Joe Pergola this last week on June 2nd, Pergola on 2026. So we want to give our condolences to his beautiful wife, Jackie, and all the things they've done for our town. And to their friends and family who I know he's been suffering for a long time, and so it's the grace of God that he's passed on now. But it's going to be a sad time for us. He's volunteered many, many hours and lots of efforts, as has Jackie. So we just want to send out our support and prayers. And I think I'm asking for
Move to adjourn.
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.